You're listening to Female Founders with Claire Bartlett, the podcast that tells you what it is really like to be a female founder in today's world. We share invaluable insights through personal journeys and real-life business experiences, highlighting the highs and the lows so you can move forward in your business with ease. I am passionate to share with you the realities of business and give you the strategies and simple steps you need to truly succeed with your business. Today's episode is brought to you by Xero Accounting Software, a champion of female entrepreneurs and a proud sponsor of the Female Founders podcast. Managing your business finances can feel overwhelming, but Xero simplifies it all and gives you the power to keep your books in order and your mind on growth. But for now, let's jump into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the first ever episode of the Female Founders Talk Show. I'm your host, Claire Bartlett, and I can't tell you how excited I am to be here today to be launching this podcast with you all. It's been such a passion of mine for the last decade I've been in business to be supporting female founders and to really get them to understand their value and get them to leave that comfort zone behind and really step into their light, own their space and really push themselves to be the best that they can be in business. I'm so excited to be using this tool now to share some really personal insights through my journey, through my business, but also having some incredible guests join me on here to answer some hard-hitting questions and really get you the answers that you need to help you on your business. We're going to share some really amazing insights through personal journeys and real life business experiences. We're going to talk about all the highs and the lows in business so you can avoid some of those pitfalls. You can get through some of that period unscathed because we've done all of that for you. We've learned the hard lessons so we can tell you what not to do and how to avoid those situations in your business. But ultimately, it's just, being an entrepreneur and being in business can be really lonely. And when you're in those tough times, when your business, is giving you those hard days, you can feel even more alone because this area of business is not spoken about enough. It's tough. It is really tough. And it doesn't matter how successful you are, how long you've been in business. We all suffer the same pain points in business, and we all have those days where we just want to throw it all in and walk away. And I just don't feel like it's spoken about enough. So through this podcast, there'll be some amazing guest experts come on. I will ask 4 main questions, which I personally am going to answer for you today as well. And they'll just show you that no matter what industry you're in, what profession, what area in business, and what level you're at in your business, we all suffer from the same down days, dark times, and there is always light at the end of the tunnel. There'll also be some one-on-one episodes just with me where I'm showing some of my experiences and my knowledge and expertise with you to really get you to start escaping that comfort zone and moving forward with your business to become the face of your brand, to really grow that network and that audience of yours. Because I know that this is something that people struggle with a lot. It's how to find that ideal client, how to grow that audience, and get what they do in front of the right people. And I tell people all the time that it takes confidence to do that, to really put yourself out there. But there is absolutely no point in being the best kept secret in the world. You could be the absolute best in your industry, but if nobody knows about you, it all means nothing. So it's so important to push yourself out there. And it does take huge leaps out of your comfort zone. And through this podcast, if you continue listening to the episodes, you'll get to learn my personal story and my journey and what leaps I had to take to get to where I am today. But yeah, I want to be there with you. I want to support you through it. And I want you to be making those moves forward in your confidence, in your visibility, to be the best in the country, in the world, to learn how to grow that audience, get that visibility that you deserve for your business or your product, and really achieve that success that you've been dreaming of. So today, I am answering the 4 questions that I will be asking every guest that comes on this show. The questions are: Is there a pivotal moment or person that you can look back through your past and think that they were the one that really put you on the path to where you are today? If there is any failures in your past, in your business so far, which was the biggest one and what did you learn from it? What challenges I faced through my growth as a business, and also if I've ever wanted to quit. So let's start at the beginning. A pivotal moment or person. I actually think there's a few people in my past that have all steered me to where I am today. The first one I would say is my first boss in the accounting industry. So, for those of you who don't know me, my first business, which is the one I've had for the last decade, is a bookkeeping and accounting practice. And I had been in the accounting industry for, I think, maybe 15 years prior to setting up that business. But if you had asked my maths teacher, for instance, or any of my teachers at school what they thought I would be, I can guarantee you not one single person would have even considered the option of bookkeeping and accounting. And I would have been exactly the same too. It was never, ever on my roadmap. However, when I was about 18 or 19, I got a temporary position. I'd just come back from traveling and I needed some work. So I took a short term temporary contract, and it was within an accounting department in a large manufacturing company. And I turned out actually I was quite good at it and I quite enjoyed it. And there was a real powerhouse of a female boss. The overhead in the entire department was a woman, and she was just, yeah, she was an absolute badass. She really knew what she was doing. She looked after everybody with a firm hand, but also was completely approachable. And I'd never really experienced this. All my other jobs, everything else I'd done had all really been very male dominated. And I was really inspired by her. And she was also very passionate about teaching the next generation in that industry. And she spoke to me constantly about, the potential that she could see in me, the qualifications I could take to really spur on my career, my options for my career. She really took the time to spend, and I was the lowest level in the accounting department that you could get. I had zero experience and I was a temp at the end of the day. But she really spent that time nurturing me, and nurturing that potential that she could see in me to try and show me that I could have a really successful career in this industry. And I think if I hadn't had that temporary position, and if I especially hadn't have had her as a boss, I don't think any of my future years would have panned out the way that they have. So thank you to her. The next sort of pivotal time in my life was I had worked my way through my career. I'd done pretty much every job through the accounting industry. And then I fell pregnant with my daughter and went on maternity leave. And that was at quite a relatively small business. There was only two of us in the accounting department. I'd been there 5 years, I think, at this point, and I loved it, really loved it. Loved the small sort of family vibe, was really going to miss them during my maternity and was genuinely looking forward to going back. And then literally, I think a week before I was due to go back, that I got a call that they weren't going to put me back in my position. Were going to put me into a different position because actually, contractually, apparently, they don't need to give you your job back. They just need to provide you with a job with the same level of salary. Obviously, I didn't know this at the time. And suddenly, I had the horrifying realization that these people did not care about me. They didn't care about me and my career and my wants and needs as a person. I was just a commodity to them and I was just a number. And that was sort of the pivotal breaking moment for me that, yeah, this is just not going to work. I did try going back to work. I think I lasted 6 weeks, two of which I was actually off sick because my daughter caught a really nasty virus going to nursery for the first time, as they do, which I then caught. So 2 weeks of it, I was off. So technically, there was 4 weeks of me being in the office, and I just hated it. I cried every day. The pressure of getting my daughter to nursery and then getting to my desk on time, the pressure of having to leave my daughter 5 days a week. She was only 10 or 11 months at this time, with effectively strangers, in nursery, and then being left with so little money at the end of the month because I had to pay for the childcare, it just broke me. And so me and my husband had that conversation. Maybe I should try going it alone and setting up my own business. And that's how my first business came about. So I think the first pivotal person was the person that put me on that career path. And the second pivotal moment in my life was when I realized that actually I didn't matter to my employer and it was time for me to set up on my own. That was in 20, and yeah, like I said, almost a decade later, I have never looked back. It was the best decision I've ever made for me and my family. So I thank you them. And like they say, everything always happens for a reason. And I truly believe that, all of those things, everything throughout my whole life, but all of those elements in my career led me to where I am today. However, question number two: failures. Of course, I have had huge amounts of failures in my business because every single person does. Okay. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're Elon Musk or the butcher down the road, every single business has failures, but it's what you do with them that counts. So I actually don't like using the term failure. I use learnings because a failure can't be an actual failure if you learn from it and you take something away from it. Then it is just a learning process. So I've had many learning opportunities in my life and in my career and in my business. Some of them have been really minor, some of them have been really huge, actually, and quite pivotal to the future of my business. I think the main failures I felt like I had in the beginning was, I remember when I lost my first client. So they had been with me for a while, and basically, at that time, I didn't offer accounting. I was just a bookkeeping practice, and their accountant bid for the entire contract. So they outbid us and they won the contract. Literally nothing to do with actually the service that we were providing. It was nothing to do with us as people. It was purely for the clients, monetary gain. They thought that it was cheaper to go with the accountant. So that's what they did. But oh my gosh, I took this so personally. I remember having to leave the office and go and walk around the corner, and I phoned my husband and I cried my eyes out. I felt like such a failure because I had lost this one client and they weren't even that big a client. It wasn't a catastrophic amount of money that I suddenly was losing. And yeah, and I just remember thinking, I can't believe I failed so badly that I'm losing a client. Now I can lose clients regularly, and I actually also have cleansings of my clients where if I don't think that we align, I actually serve them a notice period myself because it's not a failure, it's just business. I learned from it. I learned actually, one, not to take things so personally. Two, that suddenly accountants were, a threat, and that was something I had to consider, which is not something I'd looked at before. But yeah, there's so many. I think the biggest thing when it comes to failures is that actually lots of things in business that you will feel is a failure and that you are failing, but actually it's not at all. They're just part of being in business. And I think you have to learn those lessons for yourself. And then the more that they happen, the less you're impacted by them because you realize that they don't matter. And the next time it happens, you know that you'll bounce straight back. I remember the week after that first client, I actually won a new client who was worth double the amount of income than that first client, and suddenly I could breathe again. Um, so yeah, there's been many small and major failings through the decade I've been in business. However, as long as I have made sure that I've learned something from them, then I don't actually class them as a failure. Growth challenges. This is a big one for me, and it's a straight answer, and it is staff. As you grow, you need more staff. And the fastest growth rate we ever faced was actually during the COVID years, which made it incredibly difficult for me because I could not interview people and meet people in person like you have always been able to do before. Suddenly, I had to interview over Zoom and over the phone. And it's really hard to gauge a person in that way. And I had to take on, I think it was 4 members of staff during 20, none of which I could meet in person. I remember them having to come and collect their, computers and laptops and all those things. And I had to put it on my doorstep. and step away, and they had to come. We all had our mask on. It was really strange situation. And that was the first time I was actually meeting these people in person, was when they'd already been given the job and they were coming to collect the equipment. And because I had never worked in that way before, we'd always been in an office. My staff had always been sitting right next to me. To suddenly trying to manage a team remotely, I found it very, very difficult. And the staff that I took on, most of them didn't really work out for many reasons. One had really talked themselves up during their interview process, and actually they didn't have the experience that they said that they had, and they couldn't cope with the work the job that they'd actually been hired to do. So that was a very mutual decision that they left on their own accord. Another one was just not doing the hours that she was paid to do. She was sitting at home, not motivated to work. She had no drive for the success of the business. She hadn't, you know, bought into the business and our brand and our ethos really. And again, obviously, that's just not sustainable for a small business. So there's been loads of growth challenges, but the biggest one for me, and continues to be the biggest one for me, is staff, and figuring out that ever elusive method of finding the perfect staff for your business. It's hard, and I think it's even harder when it is such a small team. It's an intimate working environment, and personality trumps qualifications. You have to fit in on a personal level. And I've always said that actually skills can be taught, but personality can't. So there might be someone who doesn't quite have all the experience and the skills that I need, but if I know from a personality perspective they will really fit in well with the team, they would get the job over someone who has 10 years more experience. Because, like I said, skills can be taught, and experience can be gained, but personality is key. So I think that was a really big learning curve for me, when it comes to how to recruit. It's not always just about the qualifications and the experience on the CV. The fourth question is, have you ever wanted to quit? And I can honestly say yes a million times, but never with that much sincerity, I suppose. There has been so many days where I've just had enough. I can't cope with any more. My mind is frazzled with all of the different things that I need to think about. And I just need to close the laptop and walk away. And I'm, hands in the air. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. But actually, sort of what I mean when I say that is, I am done for today. No more today. I need to go and have a break. And this is where the balance comes in when you are an entrepreneur. You have to look after yourself. You are number one. And if you don't look after yourself with your mindset, your physical health, as well as your mental health, then you can't run your business effectively. You have to have a clear mind. You have to be driven and not be overwhelmed and, fogged up with all the noise and everything else that's around you. You have to be clear-minded, clear visioned, and clear driven to achieve what you want to achieve in business. And sometimes you need to just step away and actually give yourself the break to find that clarity again. And I think this is something that honestly we forget a lot. We don't give ourselves that time that we need. And it's always just go, 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 keep going, just keep pushing forward, keep going, no time to stop, too many things. But that can only lead one way, and that can only lead to burnout. And burnout does not do anybody any good, and certainly does not do any businesses any good. So balance is a key thing for me, throughout all my whole life. And the reason I set up the business, like I said, I was very unhappy with my employment situation. And I just wanted to be a present mum. I wanted to be there for my daughter and my family. And I felt like being my own boss, I could do that. I could work. We reduced her nursery to 2 days a week. So I only had to fill 2 days a week in the beginning of the business. That was in the October. By the December, I was already up to 3 days a week, or having to employ someone. And I chose to employ someone at that point. That was the first employee. But I have gradually grown my business and increased my hours as my family have needed me less, basically. And that has always worked for me. And up until December last year, which is 4 months ago, I had only ever worked 4 days a week. I still didn't work Fridays. I remember when my daughter started school, my husband was like, "Oh, so you're gonna start working Fridays then?" I was like, nope. No, I am not. That day is for me." And when I say it's for me, it's mainly for the household chores and the jobs that I don't get time for in the rest of the week. And if I did them all on the weekend, I would have no time for family, you know, family time at all. So I kept my Fridays to myself, and that doing those hours and controlling those hours has really helped me keep the balance in my life. Yes, of course, there are times where I'm working evenings and I'm working weekends, but I'm okay with that because I understand that this time, I'm needed currently in the business and this won't be forever. And also, I'll put my daughter to bed and I'll come downstairs and I'll turn my laptop back on. And I'm okay because I've been present for my daughter. I've been there, I've done the dinner time, the bedtime, all of that, and now I can go back to work. So it is really all about keeping that balance for me. Now I have female founders, obviously the time balance has shifted, and now I have this new business to fit into my time as well. So I have given up my Fridays for now. So I'm supporting female founders, but again, at some point, I will find that balance again, and things will balance out some more. But, it's all about your passion. And for me, female founders isn't work. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm loving the Facebook community that we've grown already. I'm loving this podcast. I've done so many interviews for this podcast already, and I have absolutely loved every second, and I cannot wait to share them with you. So yeah, this is just fun. Doesn't feel like work at all for me at the moment. And I feel like that's how it should be for everybody in business. If you're going to work for yourself, if you're going to be your own boss and be an entrepreneur, you have to wake up every morning super excited to go to work. If you are facing Sunday night dread and you are, really struggling to get yourself motivated to go to work, when it's for yourself, then something is sincerely wrong and you need to address either the business isn't going where you want it to go, it's not what you envisioned, you haven't got that balance right in your life, or something has to give. But come on, if you are working for yourself, we're putting all of this effort in for ourselves. You've got to enjoy it. So make sure that you are taking that time and that balance to keep the excitement in it for you and keep that interest there, and make sure that it's going, on track for where you envisioned it for. Something else that I do, which I don't know whether my husband's going to listen to this podcast, but if I have to go away for work sometimes, which is quite often actually now, I do a lot in London, a lot of talking events, and um, I've been in the Houses of Parliament a few times and things, which is lovely. But sometimes instead of rushing back on the train that evening, I will book myself into another hotel for the night, just so I can just have a bit of peace and quiet and a bit of mental space to think over the business and where it's going and what I'm wanting from it. Am I on track for the goals that I've set myself? And just to breathe. Sometimes you just need that space. Another thing I do is, and I did this when we had an office as well, but now my whole team work remotely. But I'll sometimes go into our local city centre, into Birmingham Centre, just on train for the day, and I'll go to the most fabulous, really luxurious hotel, and I'll work from there for the day. And it just re-energizes me, like being in such a beautiful surrounding, being served, they bring you mini croissants with your cup of tea in the morning, and they just look after you. They're so attentive. And that's what you need sometimes. You just need to be looked after. So I don't have to think about anything else. I can just have that mental clarity to do my planning and my goal setting and my visualization for where I'm wanting to go in my business. So yeah, balance is key. But I have faced many challenges and I've had many learning experiences through my business. And yeah, you will too. If you haven't already, these things will be coming for you. And that is the point of this podcast, is to let you know that it is okay to be having a bad day in business. There is always light at the end of the tunnel, and you are never actually alone in that moment. And I promise you that someone else, if not hundreds of other people, will have experienced the exact same thing that you're going through. And it's important to talk about it and not, hold yourself up and get that stress and overwhelm on you, because it doesn't serve you in any way. At the end of the day, you just have to make the decision that if I want this business to achieve, and I just have to plow through this tough time because there is always light at the end of the tunnel. So, to give you a few highlights of what is coming up in this season of Female Founders, we have some incredible guests from Helen Tudor, Shelley Wilson, Serena Novelli, Lucy Cohen. Gosh, there's so many. There'll be 12 episodes that will be coming out in this season. I have to give a huge thank you to Zero, our sponsors of this season, which is so of them. They really are champions of female entrepreneurs and are very proud sponsors of the Female Founders podcast. They understand that actually managing your finances can be really overwhelming, especially for sole traders and entrepreneurs. So they simplify the whole process and they really give you the power to keep your books in order and understand your business from a financial perspective, but be able to free up your mind for the growth and for the plans. They've also amazingly offered a 50% discount for your first 3 months of using their product, which is so amazingly generous of them. And I can't recommend Zero enough. It's the only software I've used for the whole, almost the entire decade that I've had Arden Bookkeeping. So I'm a very proud partner as well of Zero. And if you are interested in finding out any more of them, there'll be a link in the notes for you to go and have a look at that offer that they're providing. But for now, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this first ever episode, the Female Founders Podcast. This literally is a dream come true for me, you guys. So thank you so much for supporting it. Thank you for listening. I cannot wait for you to hear the rest of the episodes. If you do enjoy what you're listening to, please give me a subscribe, share it with your friends and family, share it with all those amazing female founders that you know, you network with and you think would benefit from listening to these episodes. And let's just spread the love, because I promise, gosh, that will mean so much to me. The bigger that we can, the more people we can get listening to this and the more female founders we can help to really step into their light and understand their value and their worth and become the face of their brands, we can take over the world. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And I will see you next week. Take care.